Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Simon Callow, and I'm very sorry that I can't be here with you tonight. I was so much looking forward to it because I really adore the Blue Plaque movement. I think it's one of the charming details of London life that we should encourage and be very proud of. It's a wonderful thing to walk past a house somewhere and just uh, imaginatively connect to who lived there. And if it's a famous person, then it's often very illuminating. It also, I have to say, sometimes reminds us of people that we've forgotten, that history has forgotten, that time has forgotten. And I was once instrumental in getting a blue plaque put up, and that was to Charles Laughton, who lived in Percy Street, just off the Tottenham Court Road, when he was a young-ish actor before he became a film star, but when he was a terrifically hot sensation in the West End theatre. And I thought it was worth remembering that Laughton. I mean, I'm afraid to say, perhaps not enough people remember any Charles Laughton at all. There was a time when everybody was familiar with The Hunchback of Notre Dame, with The Private Life of Henry VIII, with The Barretts of Wimpole Street, and many other, really, in their time, legendary performances. But I was a bit shocked to discover when I was doing Merry Wives, the musical at Stratford, that on one of Laughton's anniversaries, I just thought as an experiment, I'd walk around the cast, especially the cast who were under 40, and to find out what the words Charles Laughton meant to them. I drew an absolute blank. No actor under the age of 40 had even heard of Charles Laughton, which is a very sad thing, because Laughton, I think, was one of the actors who transformed the screen and who was a true creative artist. He was someone who refashioned himself for every part in an extraordinarily ambitious and very intense way, to the extent, I think, that Laughton's performances could be described as ballet dancers sometimes describe their work as a creation. It was something that had been dredged up from his own imagination and life experience, and enabled him to create memorable images which were not static in a painterly kind of way, but they were absolutely living, vibrant, often painfully achieved performances. And really, for me, once seen, they're never to be forgotten. I wrote a biography of Laughton, and that's one of the reasons why in 1987, and that's one of the reasons I was so passionate that he should be commemorated in some way. And I approached English Heritage, whose chairman was then a friend of mine, Lord Montague. It was his last year as the chairman, and he put his weight behind it, and so in quite a short space of time, the plaque went up. I originally asked Alec Guinness, who was a great admirer of Laughton's, as so many actors of his generation were. John Gielgud wrote most eloquently about Laughton. He made an astounding impact on his contemporaries. One of his contemporaries who didn't really care for him very much was Laurence Olivier. And it's interesting that many people felt that if it was a choice between the young Laurence Olivier and the young, slightly older actually, but still young Charles Laughton, that Charles Laughton won that competition completely because of his extraordinary originality, the intensity of his performances, and the consummate way in which he'd realised them. They were definitive. They were really starting. Anyway, I asked Alec Guinness if he would be so kind as to unveil the plaque, but he demurred. So I unveiled it. And looking out across the quite large crowd, I was immensely gratified to find about 20 or 30 people standing outside the little house in Percy Street, where the plaque sits now, to see Alec Guinness in full smiley mode at the back of that crowd, wearing a hat and spectacles and completely invisible to the other people who were standing on the pavement. But so I always felt that Alec had sort of endorsed this somehow. But it was a period in the English theatre where the ambition of the actors, the imaginative ambition of the actors was quite remarkable. And those were the things that Guinness and Gielgud picked on in their writings about Laughton. This quite remarkable originality. This boy who had nothing to do with the theatre at all, who came from Scarborough, whose family were restaurateurs and hoteliers, and who worked in the kitchens and as a waiter, and was finally persuaded them to let him go to RADA at the quite relatively late age of 26. He was only there for a year, but even when he was there, he played Henry Higgins, and Bernard Shaw went to see it and just said, "This is an altogether extraordinary young man. It's a complete reimagining of the part of Henry Higgins," and so it was. So anyway, Laughton did, of course, go on to Hollywood, and he, as I say, at the time, he was widely regarded as, publicly acclaimed as the greatest living actor in the world. And I would certainly put him in the same league as, for example, Marlon Brando. Clearly he wasn't as glamorous or as beautiful, indeed, quite the opposite, as Brando. But my goodness me, he engaged with the characters, but also with the art of acting. He wanted to push it as far as he could, and those performances, which I hope people will start to see again, are a testament to it. But thank goodness there's that plaque in Percy Street which tells us that Laughton, the young Laughton, was already rather an extraordinary figure, a force to be reckoned with, and electrified his audiences and his fellow actors. So I'm glad to have this chance to remember him, and God bless the blue plaques for that. Bye-bye.